This analysis will explore a complex phenomenon titled The Architecture of Invisible Chains. We will examine the psychological and social structures that compel individuals to uphold systems even at their own expense. So we begin with a strange repeating pattern. It's a paradox in human behavior. If you look across cultures, across history, you see the same thing over and over. People actively participating in systems that seem to work against their own interests. Now, from the outside, this looks completely illogical, but from the inside, there's a very coherent internal logic at play.
Here's the first part of the puzzle. People suffer. They experience stress, exhaustion, a real lack of opportunity. And they do this inside systems that they themselves claim to support. Or at the very least, systems they accept without much questioning.
And it goes further than just suffering. They actually justify the rules that are quietly limiting their own lives. They'll rationalize the very structures that hold them back. This act of justification, it's absolutely central to the whole dynamic. So the real question becomes, what's going on in the mind? What psychological mechanisms are driving this?
Now, it's easy to just write this off, to say it's ignorance, or maybe even stupidity. But those are simplistic answers, and they just don't hold up. The analysis shows that the reasons are far more complex. They're rooted deep in our fundamental psychological need for self-preservation.
You see, any system that's held together just by force is, well, it's fragile, it's brittle. The real strength, the resilience of so many of these structures, it doesn't come from some external threat. It comes from the people inside them, from their own participation.
Okay, so let's start peeling back the layers. The first layer we need to look at is internal. To really get why these systems are so resilient, you have to understand the internal cost of seeing things as they really are. Because being aware, being truly objective, it's not a neutral state. It comes with a heavy psychological price.
And there's a core principle that governs this whole internal process. Think about it. When you're faced with a truth that's uncomfortable or even threatening about your own life, it's often easier for the mind to just change its interpretation of reality rather than to actually confront that reality head-on. There's a formal term for this feeling, this psychological tension. It's called cognitive dissonance. It's that mental stress you feel when what you believe clashes with what you're doing or what's happening around you. And to get rid of that stress, something has to give. Either you change your belief or you change how you see your actions.
This discomfort, this dissonance, it gets cranked way up when our own identity gets tangled up in the system. I mean, when you've invested years of your life, your career, your whole sense of self-worth into a particular structure, any criticism of that structure can feel like a direct attack on you.
And again, there's a name for this. It's called identity fusion. This is that state where the line between me and the group, or me and the system, just starts to dissolve. It all blurs together. And at that point, defending the system is no different than defending yourself. It becomes an act of pure self-preservation.
So to avoid all that internal conflict and to protect this new fused identity, the mind kicks on this automatic justification process. You can think of it like a justification engine. Its only job is to reframe reality, to twist it just enough so that everything feels okay again, to minimize that psychological stress.
And what's really crucial to understand is that the goal of this engine isn't to figure out what's actually true. Not at all. Its primary function is to achieve psychological comfort. It's always going to choose the interpretation of reality that lets you keep functioning with the least amount of internal stress.
This tendency has a clinical name too. It's known as system justification bias. It's a cognitive bias, often totally unconscious, that makes us see the current state of things, the status quo, as fair and legitimate, even when it's clearly not in our favor. Why? Because this bias helps reduce that uncomfortable feeling of uncertainty. It trades truth for a feeling of stability.
And this bias is powerful. It actively takes negative experiences and reframes them. So all that sacrifice you made, all that struggle you went through, that's no longer seen as evidence that the system might be broken. Oh no. Instead, it gets recast as something positive. It becomes a badge of honor, a sign of virtue, a test of your character.
This is another well-known psychological principle at work. It's called effort justification. It's simple, really. The more effort, the more suffering you pour into something, the more valuable you believe the outcome to be. It has to be, right? Because this way of thinking allows you to rationalize all that effort. It helps you avoid the painful conclusion that maybe, just maybe, it was all for nothing.
Right, so we've looked at the internal stuff, all these psychological mechanisms, but they don't just happen in a vacuum. They are reinforced. They're locked into place by a whole set of external social pressures. Think about what happens when people are under constant pressure. We're talking financial pressure, not enough time, you name it. Your brain's resources get stretched thin. And when that happens, your focus narrows. You stop asking the big questions like, is this whole system fair? Instead, you're just focused on, how am I going to get through this week? Critical evaluation it takes a back seat to basic survival.
And then there's the social cost. Daring to question the way things are, well, it's not free. There are real penalties. If you voice dissent, you could face losing your status, damage to your reputation, or even being completely cut off. Social isolation. So what happens? Conformity gets enforced, not from the top down, but by the people around you.
Here's another powerful defense mechanism, but this one is for the system itself. It takes any flaw, any problem, and it makes it about the individual. So if you're not succeeding, the narrative isn't maybe the game is rigged. The narrative is you're not skilled enough, you're not disciplined enough, you're not committed enough. The blame gets shifted completely from the structure right onto the individual.
So now we bring it all together. You have the internal psychological drivers and the external social pressures. And the key is that they don't just exist side by side, they interlock. They create this incredibly powerful self-perpetuating loop. And a loop like that is extremely resistant to change, especially from the inside.
Let's walk through how this self-sealing loop actually works. Step 1. Doubt is punished. You question things, you face social consequences. Step 2. Endurance is rewarded. You stick it out, you suffer through it, and you're praised for being tough or mature. Step 3. Suffering is reframed. To help you endure, that hardship is turned into a virtue, proof of your strength, which leads to step 4. Criticism becomes weakness. Now, if you criticize the system, you're not being insightful, you're just seen as weak, unable to hack it. And this all leads to the final step, where the system self-protects. The blame is turned inward, the structure is never questioned, and the entire cycle starts all over again.
So when you look at this entire architecture, you arrive at a pretty stark conclusion. The system doesn't actually need you to believe in it. It doesn't need your passion or your ideological commitment. It only needs one thing from you: participation. Simple, quiet compliance is more than enough to keep the whole thing running.
And this leads us to the final question. If defending the system feels safer than questioning it, if the psychological and social price is simply too high, what does that say about the cost of seeing clearly?